Hey y'all, what's up? I just want to give a shout out to Petty Tupac TV. Make sure you go smash, like, and don't forget to subscribe. For real, for real.
The only way to put it, Alicia, when David Dunn walked into court this morning, he was surrounded by police officers, but the attorney had a surprise coming for him. They weren't here for a defendant, they were here for him. David Dunn walked into Third Circuit Court this morning as his client's lawyer. Now he'll likely need one. Only seconds into today's hearing before Judge Timothy Kenny, the Wayne County Prosecutor's Office said they had a warrant for Dunn and his client.
Remember I told you Detroit has no shortages on crazy stories? If you live in the D, I'm sure this won't even shock you much, beloved. Anyways, this story hit close to home because I knew the defendant Andre and some of his family. We were once close, but you know how that goes. Andre was accused and is convicted of the first-degree homicide of Brad Stewart, an alleged drug dealer in the 7 Mile Beirut area, Detroit's east side, who he befriended and became drug partners with. Many people did not like Brad in the area who were in the narcotics trade because he was stiff competition, and it was believed that Brad arranged the murder of the man accused of financing the hit's cousin. Remember I said all this is alleged and public information. A guy by the name of Lowe put a hit out on Brad. Whenever money is involved, your closest friends might be the one who slime you out. Andre Collins' conviction resulted from the murder of Brad Stewart on October 17, 2011. The defendant was seen with the victim and his co-defendant Jamil Hubert, who I couldn't find online, but they were found seen together shortly before gunshots were heard at the home on Coventry Street in Detroit. Sometime after the shooting, the defendant went to his brother's house and admitted to the murder, a conversation which was overheard by his brother's girlfriend, Latasha Henderson. The defendant described how he and the victim sold drugs together and that he believed the victim to have arranged the murder of the defendant's cousin. It's the guy who ordered it. Anyway, while the victim was distracted inside the house, the defendant took out his gun and shot the victim 4 times. Evidence was presented at the trial that the victim's nephew, Loren Jones, offered to pay the defendant for the murder. Phone calls were presented showing 18 phone calls exchanged between the two on October 17, 2011, 5 of which were just prior to the murder. Henderson and his own uncle gave a statement, and his uncle's Terrence Collins, gave a statement to the police regarding defendant's admissions. After the defendant was arrested, he sent a letter to Henderson from jail telling her to play along with the pigs, but to change her testimony at trial. He also told Henderson to meet with his attorney, David Dunn, so he could coach her on how to testify. She met with Dunn March 17th at his office and subsequently reported the information to the police. At their next meeting, March 12th, she was wearing a wire. Now, remember, I'm going to repeat this at the end so we can put this with David Dunn's story. Now, on appeal, the defendant, Andre, first argued that there was insufficient evidence that he shot and killed the victim. The medical examiner testified that the manner of the death was homicide and the victim had 4 gunshot wounds. There was evidence in the form of an eyewitness from Truett that after gunshots were heard, the defendant ran from 19662 Coventry, which is where the victim's body was found. Although Truett did not identify the defendant in the lineup, he identified him at trial. Remember that, y'all? There was also evidence that before the crime, the defendant told Terrence that Lowe wanted him to kill Brad. Further, the evidence showed that after the crime, the defendant told Terrence that he killed the victim. Now, after this, Terrence went on a run to Chicago. But anyway, the description of the crime by Terrence and Henderson were similar to one another and consistent with medical examiner's testimony, and that the victim was not shot in the back. Was not shot in the back. Finally, defendant's letters and recording of the conversation were evidence of defendant's consciousness of guilt. The defendant specifically argues that the victim's telephone records showed that the victim was alive after the defendant left the scene. However, the fact that there was a call does not mean that the victim was alive at that time. The call may have been incoming, or someone else may have had possession of the victim's phone. Now, y'all see when they say reasonable doubt, you can beat a button. It's not always true. It's a couple reasonable doubt things in here, but it's hard to convince a jury of that. The call may have been incoming, or someone else might have had possession of the victim's phone, is what they say. The victim's wife, I think it's pronounced Anitra Stewart, testified that the victim's phone was not in the trunk. Not in the trunk the victim had been driving when she arrived. The defendant also argues that there were several people with motive to kill the victim, another reasonable doubt. However, the prosecution need not negate every reasonable theory of innocence, but must only prove its own theory beyond a reasonable doubt in the face of whatever contradictory evidence that the defendant may provide. It's crazy, y'all. The defendant, Andre Collins, further argues that his mere presence did not lead to proof beyond a reasonable doubt. Further, Terrence also testified that the defendant told him that Lowe wanted to kill Brad. The fact that the defendant talked to Terrence about killing the victim before the murder occurred suggested that he had time for premeditation and deliberation. That's where the first degree come into play at. Moreover, according to Henderson, as the defendant was preparing to shoot the victim, he could not get the gun to cock. Thus, the time period from when the defendant had trouble with the gun to when the victim was killed was long enough to allow the defendant to take a second look. Thus, we conclude that the circumstances of killing and the defendant's actions are sufficient to establish premeditation and deliberation. On appeal, the defendant argues that Henderson and Terrence had serious credibility issues, which I do agree with. Terrence credibility issues. Terrence was a drug user, a drug dealer, and inconsistent and incredible testimony. This is all true, but with all of his appeals being denied, we pretty much see where this case goes. Still got life without parole. Now let's talk about the lawyer who was convicted in this case and sentenced to 4 to 20 years in the MDOC. Dunn was unexpectedly arrested in court, and he said these famous lines.
Your Honor, I categorically deny any of these allegations. Your Honor, we were prepared today to go to trial in this particular matter. Dunn was calm and didn't struggle when sheriff's deputies escorted him into a holding room.
Down the line, Dunn stated that he had in-person meetings with Henderson on March 7th and 13th of 2012. Dunn stated that he had no plan before the second meeting to attempt to persuade Henderson to change her testimony. Dunn stated that he told Henderson to come to court and tell the truth. Dunn stated that he had no meeting of the mind with Collins regarding Henderson's testimony. Dunn acknowledged that he told Henderson that if she did not remember something, Collins said that she did not remember it, but he denied telling her to testify that she did not remember something. Collins testified and acknowledged sending a letter to Henderson, but he denied writing that all she had to do was lie 3 times and she would lose credibility as a witness. Collins stated that he wrote that all she had to do was not lie 3 times. Collins denied, and he and Dunn agreed to persuade Henderson to commit perjury. Dunn stated that he told Henderson to come to court and tell the truth. Dunn stated he had no meeting of that mind. Again and again and again. Collins also said that he wrote, come to court and not lie. And she erased that on a piece of paper. And also Henderson said that he inappropriately touched her daughter when they met up, so that prompted her to go to the police. Mind you, this lady met with him multiple times. This is a crazy story, crazy alibi. You know, the whole the erasing one word to change the sentence. It could be true, but that's kind of far-fetched. Now, the uncle had stake in this. He was cool with the victim that was dead. He always never really liked his nephew, so on and so forth. And I guess he was in the area at the same time. So what y'all think about that? Y'all think Dre should have told on his uncle? Or what? Brought him into his own uncle, came to court, testified on him, and his brother's girlfriend. That's the craziest way to get convicted ever, man. Excuse my voice. I'm a little bit under the weather. I'm pretty sure y'all could tell that. Peace and blessings be upon y'all. I wanted to make y'all a video even though I ain't feeling well. I'm not doing a whole bunch of super editing on this, man. I hope y'all enjoy. Peace.
Your Honor, I categorically deny any of these allegations. Your Honor, we were prepared today to go to trial in this particular matter. Dunn was calm and didn't struggle when sheriff's deputies escorted him into a holding room. The same couldn't be said for his client's father. He said he doesn't know Dunn well at all and that he was referred to his family by a friend. This is a shock. Look at all my family, they shocked. The charged environment got even more tense this morning when outside the courtroom, the families involved in the murder trial nearly came to blows.
Your boy did it, huh? Yeah. Take that on attention.
The court procedures are supposed to be a search for truth. If people are interfering with that,